Hi, this is Joe Shannon. I'm a lawyer, a husband, a father of 6 kids, and I also host a podcast called Opening Statement with Joe Shannon. Please consider listening to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and any other folks that host podcasts. Just Google Joe Shannon and podcast, and you'll find it. I hope you enjoyed the show. Back doing a podcast. It's been a while. We took a brief break because the court started opening up a little bit more. I've been a little bit more busy with a lot of different things, but I wanted to get back to introduce folks to some really cool people I'm running into. One of them is my good friend Joe Emmerth, who is a lawyer practicing in Illinois, and he has a family law practice. Met Joe through a number of different interactions. We've broken bread a few times, but I'm really excited about him because he's opening up a new practice. So say hello to our listeners, Joe.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I appreciate it.
No problem. And I like to, when I do these podcasts, I kind of want to get to know who you are, where you came from, all that type of stuff. And I remember your backstory was pretty cool. That's why I asked people to come on here. I don't ask just everybody to come on here, Joe. So you passed the podcast test. But one of the things that I thought was pretty cool was your upbringing, and then your life as an athlete before you got into the legal world, and then some of your fun stuff you did after that. So tell us about where you grew up, where you're from.
I grew up in the South Bend, Indiana area with my folks. I'm an only child. My folks still live in the house I grew up in, and pretty much born and raised in Northwest Indiana. Went to St. Joe High School, which is right across, or it used to be right across from the University of Notre Dame's golf course, if you've ever been to South Bend. But it was a great place to grow up, a great place to go to school, and a great place to learn some values that stick with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so they have a little 4-year institution over there, don't they? In South Bend?
Yep.
Okay. So, but the one I remember is Holy Cross, right? Holy Cross is that one I'm talking about, right?
Holy Cross. Oh, that's a college, yeah.
That's good. All right. So then now tell me about it. So you never talk about it. This guy never talks about it, but you were kind of a pretty big time track and field athlete, were you?
I was captain of the track team. I threw the shot put and the discus, and basically did anything else they needed me to do. I was kind of the utility guy, even though I was a field events person. I was probably the only one on the team that could actually, run the hurdles, run a sprint, do the pole vault, do a triple jump. I wasn't necessarily going to win that event, but I knew how to do them well enough to score points. So I would I'd do the shot put and do the discus, and then they would stick me in anywhere else they thought we could score points. So
you did the pole vault?
Oh yeah.
How high did you go?
Not high, about 12 feet.
12 feet? That's big time, man. In high school? Are you kidding me?
No, I high jumped 5'10". I wasn't gonna win those events most of the time, but I was gonna score points. So
did you ever do a decathlon?
No, we didn't have that in high school, but that would have been interesting. I think I probably would have done pretty well.
You for sure would have done well, because the guys that can actually, doing a 12-foot pole vault, ladies and gentlemen, is absolute. So the pole vault, for people that don't know what that is. So I was a track and field athlete too. I couldn't do all the stuff that Joe could do. I was just a mere runner. But to pole vault, you have to get the speed enough, like a 100-meter speed runner guy. You have to be able to be strong enough to stick a pole into the vaulting area and then bend it and lift your whole body weight and bend the bar over a bar. Then you have to have the ballet moves to get over it. And then you have to have the acrobatics to land on the mat the proper way. Am I right?
That's a pretty good summary.
I mean, so for a guy, I mean, how far did you throw the shot put in the discus?
See, I think my best in the shot was 46 feet, and my best in the discus was 144.
Is this in high school?
Yeah.
And then, so you were good enough to get a college offers, right?
Yeah, they threw some money at me, or some nice work study programs, as they called them back then.
Yeah.
And I wound up going down to a small liberal arts college about 2 hours east of Dallas, Texas, called Ambassador University.
Now that's a little bit different than South Bend, Indiana.
It is. It was a very big change, but I had a lot of fun.
Yeah. So tell me about Ambassador. What was that? Is that a 4-year college?
Yeah, it was. If you remember, the Chicago Bears used to have a coach named Lovie Smith. He grew up in a town called Big Sandy, Texas. And that's actually where Ambassador University was at the time. It was a 4-year school. It was a NAIA institution, so offered a lot of athletics in that forum. But it was very small. It was a small school. There's a whole chain of small schools, all within about 30 miles of each other down there, that are in between like 1,500 and 5,000 students, these small colleges. And so we were kind of on the small college circuit. But I went from a small high school with about 800 people to a small college with about 2,000 people. So I enjoyed that aspect of it and getting to know everybody really well.
So you got better then at the discus and the shot put?
I did. I was never, I was never going to light the world on fire, but I did okay.
Yeah.
I pretty much hit my ceiling of my athletic abilities there in college.
I love it. The same way. I mean, so I ran track and field I ran cross country and track and field in college. And I think my coaches thought I could be a lot better than I was. And I don't know, maybe some injuries got in the way, but I'll tell you, I had such a great time, and I met so many great people that I'll never forget it. In fact, this morning I was on the telephone with one of my roommates, and he's up in Anchorage, Alaska. And I never would have met that guy if it wasn't through sports. And so for me, sports has always been a entree to relationships. And was it like that for you?
It was. You got to meet a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. I went from being 120 miles away from Chicago to really deep in the heart of East Texas. We were just as close to Louisiana as we were to Dallas. So it was a big culture shift, but a fascinating culture shift. And I got to meet a lot of people and get exposed to a lot of different cultures I never would have been exposed to otherwise.
Yeah, I know that you, on one of the first times we met, I thought one of the coolest things that you do is you have this relationship with New Orleans that you go visit there quite a bit because you like it. Tell me what's so great about New Orleans.
I do. Well, that all started in college, just because you're an 18, 19, 20-year-old college kid and you think going down to New Orleans would be a fun time. But after you go to New Orleans maybe half a dozen times, you start to realize that there's a lot more to Louisiana and to that area in particular than just the commercials you see on TV that have Bourbon Street all over them. There's a rich history, a rich culture. The port of New Orleans actually predates, most of the states in this country. It was a French colony, and there's a ton of things to explore, from history to cuisine to different amalgamations of cultures. You know, you have the Caribbean, you have the Acadian culture, you have the what we call right now the Deep South. And there's a lot of things down there that people aren't aware of. For instance, the National World War I History Museum is down there, or World War II History Museum is down there. And you could spend 2 or 3 days going through that. But there's just, it's just such a rich and vibrant area that even though I go down there or try and get down there 2 or 3 times a year, not a trip goes by that I don't learn something new or do something different than the previous times I've been there.
Well, and you don't have any Cajun blood in you, Joe?
I do not. I do not. I am German and a little bit of Polish.
Yeah. So, that's so basically this, your sports took you on a ride down to East Texas. You were introduced to different cultures. I bet you saw some pretty good runners down there when you were down there in East Texas.
Oh yeah. A lot
What's
of
the
runners.
fastest guy you ever saw?
I remember we had a track meet against a small college called Jarvis Christian, which was about maybe 20 miles down the highway from us. And they had some female sprinter, 100-yard meter and 200-yard meter runner. And not only did she have the fastest time among the women, but she would have come in first in the men's race as well. And I remember circling on the calendar next year when we played them, because I wanted to make sure I got over there and saw those races. But next year she was gone. She had got she was just at Jarvis Christian to get her grades up, and she got a full ride to Arkansas the next year.
Yeah.
And they're always challenging for the national championship. So you ran into some really interesting athletes there. They weren't always in those small colleges because they lacked the talent. Sometimes they had other reasons to be there. But
right.
Yeah.
So tell me about then. You got out of college. Did you go right into law school then, Joe?
I did not. I graduated with a degree in psychology and had no idea what I wanted to do. Literally none. I couldn't think of an industry or a career path that suited me. I was really kind of adrift. So I moved to Dallas with a couple of friends, which was the next largest, major city. And I just did some odd jobs for a while. I worked in a Kinko's, I worked in a zoo, I worked on a road crew. I did all kinds of weird things. But I eventually had a job where I worked in this juvenile rehabilitation facility. And it was my job to try and find the juveniles that successfully graduated that program jobs. And I really liked working with that kind of population and dealing with people who had some challenges in that area. So I decided I was going to go back to school for counseling. And so I moved back up to Indiana, and I wound up getting a master's degree in counseling. And I worked at a mental hospital for a couple of years. And I really loved the work, but I really hated the managed care aspect of it and dealing with insurance companies and all of that sort of thing.
Right.
So I thought, there's got to be some other area where I can help people and where I can bring the skills that I've developed to bear. And I had several friends who had gone to law school right out of undergrad. And from time to time, they would trash talk me a little bit and say, hey, you should have gone to law school. You'd be perfect for it. I don't know what you're doing down there in the crazy house is what they called it. But the more I thought about it, I thought, I could probably take a lot of these tools and go to law school and still wind up helping people. So in the fall of 2002, I started law school at DePaul University in downtown Chicago, and I graduated in the spring of 05.
Well, so you've been practicing law for about 16, 17 years now.
16 years. Yep. All of it in family law.
Right. So then I know that you have an announcement to make as far as that got your own name on the door now, right?
That's true. That's true. I was with the same firm in Naperville for 15 years, 5 as an associate and 10 as a partner. But starting in February of this year, I left and hung out my own shingle, as they say, and Emmerth Divorce Law was born.
That's great. And so are you located in the west suburbs?
I am. I'm in the Cantera area of Warrenville.
Okay. All right. And then I see behind you, you got a couple images. You know, one of them is Mr. Lincoln there.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Kind of the patron saint of Illinois attorneys.
You know, people don't understand that, or a lot of people don't understand that Lincoln used to ride his horse around, you know, and go to the different circuit courts, and that's called riding circuit. He used to go around and ride the circuit around and try cases and did all sorts of different things. In fact, he probably handled some family law cases too, didn't he?
Oh yeah, back in those days, everybody was a general practitioner. You took any kind of case that came through the door.
Wow. So tell me, Joe, you tell me about what it's like to have a family law practice.
Family law is definitely not everybody's cup of tea. A lot of attorneys avoid it like the plague. And that's because you're dealing with people who are usually in some sort of crisis. They're going through what's usually one of the worst periods of their lives. You know, not just their income and their financial stability is at stake, but a lot of times it's going to impact their relationship with their children or how often they get to see their children. It's very stressful and very nerve-wracking for the clients. And as an attorney, you have a lot of client contact, which a lot of attorneys don't like. And you're in court a lot, which a lot of attorneys don't like. So you have to have not just excellent legal skills, but you also have to have very good person skills, people skills. And you have to be able to keep your wits about you and remain calm, even though the clients are panicking or they're going through a really rough patch.
Right. So I bet your past, you know, heading out as an 18-year-old, going to a whole new different place in Texas, and then helping out those kids that were having a tough start, and then helping all those people counseling, that's probably come in handy, hasn't it?
Oh yeah. A lot of, we joke around sometimes, a lot of days I wear that hat more than I wear my lawyer hat. But you know, that's one of the advantages I think I bring to the table. There are a lot of attorneys that do some family law just because they think it's a good receivable or it's a good practice area to make money in. But there aren't a whole lot of attorneys that do family law exclusively. I think you really have to have the skills for it or the inclination for it. And the background in counseling definitely helps.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that for sure with, you know, having seen the worst, you know, situations where people are actually confined because of their mental illness issues or basically some of these kids that were actually incarcerated. And, you know, you've seen a lot worse things happen to people. Although, you know, they say that, you know, going through a divorce is like, it's almost like a death in the family.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're used to that type of, you know, relationship, and then now it's gone.
Yep. They say, you know, for a lot of people, the only thing worse than a divorce would be to lose a child or something.
Yeah. So, are there any, so people may be hearing about you for the first time, Joe. Is there any publications or anything on your website that would help them get to know you better?
Oh, sure. I've got well, I just started a new firm, so I have a new website. It's www.emmerthdivorcelaw.com. That's EMMERTH divorcelaw.com. But I've got some blog posts. I've got some videos there. Back in 2016, I actually wrote a book. I decided that, men are far more likely to screw up their case than women are. And so I thought I'd try and help them out. So I wrote a book called Winning Your Divorce, the top 10 mistakes men make and how to avoid them. And I published that back in 2016, and you can find that on Amazon or any place else that sells books online.
Okay. And would somebody in a situation, they just got served with papers out of the blue, isn't it good for them to have more information than less as far as know what the next step is? Because they're probably bewildered at this point.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people, I mean, there's a misconception, I think, amongst the populace that, by the time it gets to the point where somebody asks for a divorce, you should see it coming. Everybody should know things have gotten bad up to that point. But I think you would be surprised how many people it's a complete surprise for. And a lot of times they're confused, they're, afraid, they don't know what the next steps are. But, the key to managing that is to get as much information as you can. Anxiety is really fear about the unknown, and fear can't live in an information-rich environment. So part of my job is to give you as much information as I can and walk you through every scenario, answer every question, talk about every curve and every twist in the road. Number one, to lower your anxiety level, but number two, to make sure that you're equipped and prepared mentally and emotionally for, the next 6 to 12 months.
I when I represent clients, we pretty much are selective on what type of cases we'll take, because we only want to take the cases that we think we can come through for people on and that we are prepared to try. Is that your case too, that you want to make sure that you're the one that's well suited to take the case?
Oh, absolutely. Part of being, I think, a responsible attorney is recognizing that there are certain types of clients or certain personalities that you just don't mesh well with. And if you're honest with yourself, what you will do is you will, at some point come to that realization, usually in the initial consult, and you'll refer them to somebody that you think, is better suited to handling either the approach they want to take or is better suited to dealing with their particular personality. So what I always look for is somebody who, even though they might be, in turmoil emotionally, they can take a deep breath, they can take a step back, and they can approach it like a business decision. Somebody who's not going to fly off the handle, somebody who can stay focused, and somebody who is willing to proceed in good faith, even if it seems like their spouse is not, because the court will pick up on that pretty quickly and act accordingly. So I always tell my clients, I'm more than happy to fight their spouse. I'm more than happy to fight their spouse's attorney, and I'll even fight the court for them. But if I have to fight them too, it's not going to work out. So we have to be on the same page, and we have to have goals and strategies that are aligned and that we can proceed on.
Tell me the dynamics of the financial. I mean, most people are concerned. Listen, they're going to go through a tough time. They're about to. They thought there was a hole there as far as a whole group, and then now it's going to be divided up. Tell me about the financial decisions that go through a client's mind when they hire a lawyer.
Well, it's gotten a lot better for men in particular lately, but the system is still skewed somewhat in favor of the wives. So if you have a man coming in, usually the man's concerns are, how much money am I going to have to pay my wife, either in spousal support or in child support? Am I going to have enough money left over to still live a life? Or am I going to go back to bachelor days where I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment and I'm eating pizza every day because that's the only thing I can afford. Usually if a woman comes in, her concerns are the opposite. Am I going to have to survive on 40% of our combined income, even though I'm probably going to have the children 60 or 70% of the time? If I've given up my career to help raise a family, how am I ever going to, catch up or be able to re-enter the workforce at a decent level? Am I going to have any kind of retirement? Those sorts of things. So everybody's always interested in financial security. They're just usually coming at it from different angles.
So do you exclusively represent women or men, or do you represent both?
I do represent both. I focus a lot of my marketing on men just because I think they need the help, but I do represent both genders.
Great. And so, so as far as hiring a guy like you, and with your practice, I've kind of got a chance to look under the hood, and you've got a great practice as far as you have a lot of clients, and you can be selective as to who you represent. Is one of the decisions about whether you're going to represent a client whether or not they can pay you?
Well, yeah, that definitely plays into it. At the end of the day, this is a business, and I've got to make sure I can cover my overhead and pay my staff. But one of the nice things about going out on your own, which wasn't necessarily the case at a larger firm, is, every once in a while you'll do a consultation and, you really sympathize with the person, you really feel for them, and you really think that if they just had a little help, you can make a world of difference. But maybe they can't afford you, or they can't afford you at the level you would normally ask them to contribute. The nice part of being out on your own is I might take that case anyway. I might jump in, start swinging my sword around and see if I can affect some positive outcomes, even though maybe those positive outcomes won't necessarily be in my business operating account. But that's one of the nice things about being out on your own. It gives you the freedom to step into the street and say, what, I'm going to make this my business. And it always feels good when you feel like you can right a wrong, or give somebody that little nudge to get them over the edge where, it didn't seem like they were going to get any help from anybody.
Yeah, one of the things that I think about is, one of the things that we do is, we end up doing a lot of pro bono work, which is what you're talking about. Pro bono means free legal services. And I'm not saying that you're doing it for free. Sometimes you have a sliding scale for people. But what I found is that when you do that type of thing, not only is it good for the community and it's good for your law practice, because what are we other than the goodwill of our law practice and our name? And so I know that you're on the judicial evaluation committee and have been for years. And I think the judges understand people that are the givers on that type of thing, and they understand that there's people that are mercenaries and they're only in it for their clients all the time and not necessarily giving back to the community. So I think it's a good business move too, even though sometimes you're kind of looking at it as, hey, I really didn't make any money on this.
Yeah, that's true. And I think to your point, it's never a bad move to establish credibility with the judges. And like you said, there are a lot of mercenaries out there. I know a couple of attorneys who can't stand family law, but they take cases in family law because it's a good receivable. But I think that over time, as you appear in front of various judges over and over again, the judges are pretty attuned to who's in it because they want to see what's best happen for the clients versus who's in it to see how much money they can extract from this litigation. So I think you're correct. Things like that, taking the occasional pro bono case or helping out where you can help out, even if it's just for a court date or two, goes a long way with letting the courts know exactly who you are and what your motivations are about.
Sure. We get some cases and I tell, insurance companies, I say, listen, we're pilgrims. We believe in early settlements. And so, a lot of times we don't agree on the number, but I always like to try and right initially try and make that call and say, listen, we can avoid all this litigation. We can avoid the years of going through all this stuff. Most of the time we don't resolve it that way, but sometimes we do. And sometimes it's kind of nice for the client because then, if it's a small policy or whatever, but I would think in the same thing with, if you have a couple and they have little kids, and I think the inclination, and maybe I'm wrong, I look at things more half full or 3/4 full than most people, is that I think that most parents want the best for their little kids, and they don't want them to go through the hassle of, fighting continually, daily fighting between parents. Is that there's a way that there can be some sort of reconciliation, at least as far as outside the courtroom and all those types of things, that come to some sort of agreement without spending, $150,000 each on lawyers.
Yeah, that's true. And there are certain attorneys that are really good at that. I mean, there are certain attorneys where if I see them on the other side of my case, I know that we're going to be able to sit down like two rational adults and probably work this out. Unfortunately, that's not every attorney, but there are some attorneys like that. But there's also this phenomenon out there, this public perception. I think maybe it's created by the mercenaries you referred to earlier, that all divorce attorneys are out there just to treat the client like an ATM, which is so not true. I think the majority of the population would be stunned to realize how often we try and talk ourselves out of work. When you have an area like family law where emotions are highly charged and people are angry and upset a lot of times, very often you have to sit the client down and say, look, you're about to spend $3,000 to fight over $600. Keep your money. Don't do this. You don't need to file this motion. You don't need to do this. Just let it go, or just pay the money or whatever. But sometimes the trick is getting the client not to engage in litigation or not to spend the money, and to sit down and try and work out something that both parties can live with.
Well, that's what I want to hear. So I know that when people call Joe, they're talking to a guy that is going to want to help them get it resolved quickly, if it's just for his client, and will fight for you to the end if it's a bad deal. So, Joe, I want to thank you so much for chatting with us today. But I want an assurance from you that down the road you're going to talk with us again and kind of give us some updates on some of the great things you're doing.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate you asking me to be on the show, and I would love to come back and keep you updated on how things are going on this solo adventure.
Well, and plus I want to hear some great stories about some of your, New Orleans haunts, because, one of these days I'm threatening to go down there with you so you can show me all the behind the scenes stuff.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right, my friend. Take care, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks a lot.
See you, Joe.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the opening statement with Joe Shannon. You can find us on the internet at shannonlawgroup.com or telephone our office at 312-578-9501. Have a terrific day.